Hey there, fellow adventurers, or maybe future adventurers. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. Now, we're going to dive into some of the things that might be swirling around in your head if you're new to the world of Dungeons & Dragons, or perhaps just considering taking that first step into the fantastical. So grab a cozy seat, settle up, and let's chat. Now, the first thing I want to address is the fear of not knowing the rules. And I think this can be a big fear. When you first get into Dungeons & Dragons, or any tabletop RPG for that matter, you're going to come across the rule books. Now, D&D has two that you need to be familiar with right off the get. First, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and of course, the Player's Guide. Now, both are important. Now, Player's Guide is enough if you're just a player. If all you're doing is playing the game, that will get you going. If you want to DM, you got to dig a little deeper and you got to understand a little bit more about the game. Now, this is by the way, the 2014 edition, 5th edition book. So there have been some updates since then, but that again, to me, even being concerned about which edition you're playing, has the wrong attitude about understanding the rules. The rules of Dungeons & Dragons make it Dungeons & Dragons. If you want to play another game, another one that I really enjoy is Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's a different rule book. There's certain things that are addressed in different ways. If you play that way, you're playing that game. Another one I really enjoy is The Witcher, tabletop RPG. And that one has its own guide, its own rules, its own way of playing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And when you get into the hobby, you start to understand why some systems are one way or some are the other. But for Dungeons & Dragons, these are the rules that you agree to adhere to. And so that's kind of what makes it a D&D game. But the very first thing, the most important thing, is a philosophical thing. And so I want to read to you from the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide. It's the first page, the introduction. And the introduction, paragraph 7, reads as follows. The D&D rules help you and the other players have a good time, but the rules aren't in charge. You're the DM, and you are in charge of the game. It goes on. That said, your goal isn't to slaughter the adventurers, but to create a campaign world that revolves around their actions and decisions, and to keep your players coming back for more. If you're lucky, the events of your campaign will echo in the memories of your players long after the final game session is concluded. So there you have it. From the very Dungeon Master's Guide, the rules are not in charge. So the first thing you've got to understand is the rules are not an obstacle for you to overcome. They are the tools by which you run the group. They are the tools by which we play the game. Now, is it important to know those rules? Of course. Is it important to have at least a glossary understanding of them? Yes. Do you have to memorize every minute detail? Absolutely not. That's why they're written down and organized in multiple volumes with multiple chapters. Take a look at the 2014 D&D Player's Guide. And when you look at the table of contents, you don't need every bit of information on here. You don't need to memorize what's on each page in order to play the game. In fact, everything from the very introduction of the book through understanding the gameplay of the game, we don't even get into the gameplay until we're on page 171 of this manual. So, look at the table of contents. Make sure you understand some of these concepts, some of these ideas. And if you're going to go sit at a table with some experienced players, and they're going to help you get rolling on that. Now, I wouldn't jump in as a DM on day one. I would try to join a game as a player. And in order to do that, we need to get into the next common fear of getting into the hobby, which is, where do I begin? How do I build a character? All right, let's talk about character building. And I've got a very, very easy answer for you here, but I'm going to save it for a minute. I got to keep you hanging with bated breath. When we talk about D&D character creation, again, we're going to go back to our rule book. So whatever rule set you and your table have decided to play at, that's the rule book that you would need to have access to. Most of these are available online. I love having the print versions of books. There's just something very real about having a book in your hand, and something very satisfying about turning large multicolored pages to get to where you want to go. Now, I mentioned in the last section that we talked about the rules, about looking at the table of contents. And so if we look in our player's guide and we look at the table of contents, we'll see that part 1 is all about step-by-step character creation. So if you really want to understand how in D&D we build our characters, that is where you would begin. Page 9, go to chapter 1, step-by-step characters, and then read it. Keep turning the pages and reading the words on the pages until you get up to page 171, where we start getting into ability scores, adventuring, combat, and all the mechanics of the game. That whole huge chunk of information is then broken down into selecting races, selecting classes, coming up with personality and background, figuring out what starting equipment you have, and then doing some customization. If you don't know where to begin, look at this and say, okay, let's look at the races. Okay, there's a whole section on just choosing a race, but then they have a bunch of them listed out. Dwarf, elf, halfling, human, dragonborn, on and on and on. Pick one that looks interesting to you. Read about it. Do you like that? You've made your choice. That's the one you're going to be. Which class do you want to be? If you see one in that list that you're interested in, go to that page, read about it. If you like it, that's it. You don't have to understand the nuances of every race and every class and every piece of equipment in order to put a character together. Just go with your gut. Go with what sounds interesting or sounds fun, and do that first. Because the more you play, the more you're going to get exposed to other players who do other things. You might get intrigued by what a wizard does, or you might think that rogues are pretty sweet, want to take a stab at it. Just a little D&D humor for you. You're going to be exposed to these things, and you're going to have opportunities to try other things, but focus on getting one right first. And now for that bit that you've been hanging on, skip all of that. Just use one of the pre-constructed characters that come with the starter set. Yeah, just go online and do a random character generator. Just take what it gives you. Learn that character. The beauty of this game is in your imagination and in you taking ownership of the characters that you create and the choices that they make based on the personality that you assign to them. So you don't have to get bogged down in the rules. Many a times have I shown up for a game with no idea what was going on, no character created, and just being handed, here, pick one of these. Hey, just pick one that looks fun, pass it on to the next person until we've got a party. Nothing wrong with that at all. And in fact, that's one of the best ways to learn. Because one of my hang-ups, frustrations with the game, I think especially with D&D 5e, is people get very attached to their characters. And they only want to play the same characters all the time. And I'm of a different background, a different thought on that. I think the danger is important. And if you're too attached to characters who are likely to die, that can hurt. So it depends a little bit on the kinds of games that you want to run. There's nothing wrong with having a favorite character, especially if you know you're going to be partaking in a longer campaign. But it is also very fun to do a series of one-shots and have different characters all the time. And that's really how you're going to learn about the characters, about the classes, about the races. And you're going to start to develop your own taste for what kinds of characters, what kinds of abilities that you like to use in a game. And that comes from experience. So from the get-go, either step by step, walk through the book and create a character. It's fun. That's it. That's fun in and of itself. If you can't get a group together, you can always sit down and just create characters. Otherwise, just use a pre-generated character and you're going to do just fine. And that's our chat for today. I truly hope that this has been helpful and maybe even eased some of your concerns. Remember, the journey into tabletop role-playing is an amazing one, filled with creativity and connection. Don't let anything hold you back from experiencing it. If you have any thoughts or questions, please share them in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe so that you get that next video, and I will see you then.